So artificial intelligence is changing the way businesses operate. But how do you actually adopt it in a way that drives real results? So that's coming up next on the DORE Podcast. So welcome back to the DORE Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Doré, and today's guest is Chris Doré.
I know,
not
right?
related.
It's amazing. Small world.
Yeah. So same last name, so
Yep.
it's a fun chat.
Okay.
So you started a company called Scarlett Nova.
Yes.
And it's a company that empowers businesses to harness AI in a practical, value-driven way. Mm-hmm. And Scarlett Nova helps organizations move beyond the theory. They run workshops, build AI strategies, and build AI projects to life in impactful ways. So today, we'll dig into your journey, Chris.
Awesome.
And how you help people adopt AI with the growth and what the future holds. So I'm happy to have you.
I'm super excited to be here, and thank you for having me. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, when I saw you doing the presentation at the SEO Plus event the other day, I said this would be a really fun chat to have with you. So I'm glad you're here today.
It's awesome. I'm super excited. Like anytime, like my wife always kicks me out of the house and says, "Go talk to AI with other people." I'm like, this is a great opportunity. So I really appreciate it.
So you got kicked out of the house today?
I get kicked out all the time. Anytime I talk about AI, she's like, "Enough of that. Go."
Yeah,
talk
good.
To somebody
Well,
else.
I'm not kicking you out.
Okay,
We're gonna have a chat today. So
awesome. Thank you.
So I'm fascinated by your enthusiasm with AI. So how did you get into this? Like what got you started on this journey?
Well, I guess I'll go back to when I was born in Sudbury, Ontario. No, actually, it was really my master's. So I did my master's in technology and innovation management, but I always had a background in doing a little bit of coding. I wasn't really hardcore into coding when I was growing up, but I was into technology. Then I did my master's 2016. Around that time, I went to Carleton Technology and Innovation Management program, and most of the work there I did was on applied AI. And to me, I get super excited about artificial intelligence because I come from that generation where we had, all the movies, right? Like I can just name off. You had Space Odyssey, we had Star Wars, we had Tron, we had all those movies. And so to me, I see AI as this amazing technology that we can now leverage. And when the internet came out, I was young when the internet came out, and I wasn't able to leverage it from a business perspective. And this is like the second coming. This is like the internet times 1,000, right? And so for me, it's just really, really exciting to be able to learn about the technology and then help companies apply it. Because to me, that's where the value comes, right? Like you can have every technology in the world, but if you're not using it and not using it properly, what's the point, right?
Absolutely. So. And even for us as business, as we were chatting before the podcast, is even though there may be an appetite for us to adopt it, we're not sure exactly how to do it with technology. So that's why we'll dive into that.
And that's most companies, right? Like that's not just you, right?
Like,
I just read a report that 95% of pilots fail, of AI pilots fail. And that baffles me because I don't have that experience. Like most of the companies I work with are getting pretty decent return on investment right away. So it's curious to me. So I'll have to read more into that report and to see what that was or how they calculated that. But basically, it's really interesting. I think at this point in time, and one of the big things I always like telling people is like, don't wait. This is one of those moments where you need to start exploring, getting into it now, learning. Because that's really, really important because there's a learning curve that you gotta get through before you actually start to see really good results. So
it definitely feels like we're on a pivotal moment in time.
Oh, when it
comes to business. So
it's changing business models. It changes everything, and we're seeing it starting to really make big impacts now, and it's just going to have bigger and bigger impact.
Yeah, so that's interesting because on your site you describe starting with workshops and then helping teams identify return on investment AI projects. So can you walk us through like those initial steps? Like what does that look like from a business standpoint?
It's funny because what happens is when people say AI, new technology, they get really excited and they start grabbing tools, they start trying to apply it, but they never actually think about how it's really going to help their business. Right? I think most of those pilots fail because they're not really being strategic. They're not really trying to figure out where the first implementation part is going to benefit them. So they're just grabbing all these tools, they're trying to apply it, and they're like, oh, it doesn't work here, then they forget about it. So what we do is we come in, we have conversations about business strategy, right? Where are your workflows? Like, what are your workflows? We talk about that a lot. We talk about where are your pain points, problems, right? Like, AI is just a tool that helps you solve certain problems. It isn't the answer for everything yet, but it is the answer for a lot of the problems.
Like you say yet.
So you really can't, like, if you wanted to, if you had unlimited resources, you could pretty much apply it to every piece of your business. But most companies don't. And so you really have to kind of figure out, okay, is it more beneficial for us to use it here or over here? And that's where my company comes in, and we kind of help having that discussion. Okay. Another piece to that is that we find that a lot of companies...
And sorry, just on that point, I just want to drill down a bit. So you say you want to know on which point. So does that mean in terms of having a result-driven outcome, or is it like we're just trying to strip certain steps out of the equation?
Well, it depends on the problem you're trying to solve, right?
Okay.
So in some cases, it's efficiency,
right?
Where I get excited is when we find problems where you can increase revenue. And I think that is like, very few people start thinking, when they think AI, they think efficiency. They think we're gonna reduce time to do something. And that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. I get super excited when I start thinking about the use of data and using data to make better decisions. I think that's where it gets really exciting. And I think when people nail that, they start to make much better decisions for their organization and for their business. That will help with the generation of revenue.
Yeah, that's interesting. See, my mind right away with AI went with efficiency, but it's interesting how well, so the focus is, and I appreciate
it's good because it's both sides, right? But as I mentioned, like, I get excited about the revenue, because revenue to me is every business wants to generate revenue, right? So, and more revenue, the better in most cases. So that's where, what we're seeing is that there's a lot of companies that, have data, but they're not properly using data. When data is a whole another issue when it comes to
so if you don't have data, I guess it's tough to implement.
Especially leveraging the tools. Most of the tools, if on the side of efficiency, you might not need a lot of data, because you might need, maybe 12, 30 reports, and then you put it in, and then it helps you duplicate that report over and over again. That's the kind of like low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
Where I think the potential of AI, and where I think most companies should get to, is eventually building kind of like an AI brain within the organization, right? So it's your AI brain, your business brain here, and your brain here, working together to make the best decisions for the organization.
Yeah, interesting.
That's where I think the power
comes.
That becomes Tony Stark and Jarvis at that point, right?
Exactly.
Or C-3PO if you want.
No, I think that is that's a really good distinction, because I'm just speaking for myself. I was viewing it more as an efficiency tool, but from a value-driven, looking at data and opportunities for growth, I think is it's definitely an interesting
Well, how are you guys using it now?
Well, we aren't really.
Okay.
We're very, very, from a surface standpoint, we make use. Obviously, we were mentioning before, we have the HubSpot CRM that runs our website and runs our workflow. So everything that is leasing related is all tracked through there. So HubSpot came out with an AI function that we use to get reports. Yeah. But I guess there's two things. One is it's great to have the tool, but then there's two things. So how do you use it to maximize efficiency, which is the way we were thinking of, but now you're kind of turning it in a way where it's like, how do you use it to generate more revenue, which would be an interesting, proposition, because that's the mindset was probably not where we were going with it. And then trying to make sure that the data, like I know we were doing it for reports, because we're working on KPIs and making sure that the data is accurate, and we want to be efficient when it pulls the data. Yep. But then looking at the data and saying, is this real? Is it just pulling something? Yeah. But can we verify that the information it's pulling is accurate? Yeah. Because if you want to make informed decisions, you want data, yes, but you want it to be accurate. Yep. And we want to be efficient on how we pull the data in order to make those decisions. So that's why it's interesting when you talk about value versus efficiency. I think there's probably a part there that we weren't weren't, our angle wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it's,
I encourage, like, another aspect of it too is, like, we were talking about this earlier about how, when Excel came out, everyone got Excel, and then you're like, most people use, even today when they're using Excel, are using maybe 5% functionality, right? And we're seeing the same thing with AI tools, where you have these AI tools and people are just basically using the basics of that tool without actually leveraging it to the ability. Most people, I'm a college professor as well, so most people aren't getting training in this, right? They're not getting trained yet on ChatGPT, on Gemini. Like, there's definitely things that can be taught to people to leverage and use the tool much more efficiently and better, and it's not hard. Like, the training, just same with Excel, right? Like, you learn the formulas. The beauty about AI, you don't have to worry so much about those formulas anymore. It does it for you. But there's definitely things within these systems, like these large language models and these other tools, that if you're not learning how to use the tool properly, you're only probably scraping, as I said, 5 to 10% of what that tool can do. Right. And so for me, like, that's what my company does. We try to, first off, we help you decide which tools to use. I used to have, when I first started the company, I thought, okay, we'd do a lot more custom builds. But now that, because it moves so fast, like, we did a custom build early on, and like even 8 months later, I'm like kind of regretting that, because the technology advanced even in that period. Okay. And so they're stuck with a kind of a lesser model per se than what they would have now with a tool. So we're moving towards being more tool based and helping organizations pick the right tools for the organization. Instead of having 3 or 4 large language models, maybe you only need 1. Okay. You don't have to pay for them all, right? Okay. And then picking the tools actually help your company the best, right?
Yeah. And I think from you with a consultation like that, obviously, because I think, and I'll speak for myself again, because I don't know, everybody thinks the same way, but sometimes it's the tools, perhaps we know they're there, but we don't see, like, I can't see the, what can it really do?
Right.
And that when I was at your presentation, obviously we were doing things live, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's crazy, but I wouldn't, like, I knew certain aspects of it, but when you drill down, so that's why I think the value that you bring to the table to at least talk about the possibility. Yeah. It's one thing to look at, oh, okay, these great, this all these things, get more efficient, or it scrapes data, you can make decisions, but even to understand the possibilities, I think is for most, and again, I speak for myself, is a limitation, because I don't see that actually is an option. So it's I find it interesting, because I think one of the things you emphasize on the site too as well, as you're going through this, is that there's ways to move fast and get plugins and get revenue going right away. So generally speaking, I guess that is specific to the business. I guess it's not 100%. This is not generic.
No, I think, first off, thank you for saying wow, because at this point in time, when I show people some tools, it feels like sometimes I'm a magician, but I'm only going to be a magician for a short period of time. And so for now, it's great to hear that wow, and to show people how you can take one process from 3 or 4 hours to 5 minutes, right? Like, it looks like magic right now, and that's just for now. Like, a year from now, that the stuff that I showed during that presentation will be like commonplace, right? But back to what you said about getting to a point in moving fast on artificial intelligence and embedding and implementing, often that comes with a commitment from management and from the owner of the business, right? Because they're the ones that are going to drive this. It's not just a technology adoption. It's a change management problem for a lot of organizations, because everyone's dealing with fears. Oh, is this going to take my job? And that, I think that comes from lack of understanding. Okay. Right? Yes, like the lack of education, right? Yes. Like,
because I think that's kind of what we hear. The first thing is people are worried, because you think, oh, this is a great tool. Then people say, oh, hang on a second. I may be implementing tools to get myself out of a job. So that's, and we were just chatting about this before, where to me, I'd much prefer to, make the people on our team that
Right.
much more efficient, given the tools so they can produce more.
I call it steroids, right?
Right.
Like, so imagine you have
artificial and steroid.
Yeah, artificial. It's the steroids are artificial too. But basically, like the way I look at it is like you have somebody, maybe they do a blog a day, right? They used to do a blog a day. Now they can do 8 blogs a day, right? And so that's great. Now they can do maybe other things, right? Like, so it allows that ability to be effective and more efficient. I think down the road, especially for anything that's done online or digital, I think, if your whole job is digital and you're just on your computer all day, I think there's definitely some potential of AI evolving to the point where, that it's better and quicker than you are and less costly because, I think that I could see that happening, and I actually see it happening in certain professions right now. Like, I'm not going to name any, but
I listen.
There's definitely some professions that I like. My spider sense is tingling. Let's put it that way, because even for myself, I don't hire those people anymore.
Okay.
Right? Like, and I'm pretty sure if I was to ask you, you'd be like, okay, well, we don't hire those people, and it's because of the artificial intelligence. It's because we're getting good at this, or it's enabling that activity much easier and at cheaper cost.
No, no doubt, and I sense, based on what I'm hearing in your presentation and what it's only going to accelerate. So there's a time, the time is now. And you were mentioning before too the podcast where you were kind of outlining businesses where you have, say, a business with a lot of resources where they can invest a lot of money and get themselves up to snuff. And then you have the new startups, which they don't know any better, so they use the tools right off the get-go. And
hopefully.
But some do. I mean, obviously, that sometimes they're younger, they use the technology. But you were talking about the 90%, and I'm in the 90% where we don't have tons of resources, nor are we a startup. So those are the ones that have a bit more challenges in implementing. That's right. And you need, as you alluded just a few minutes ago, where management needs to be willing and able and want the team to move forward. So it's be interesting.
And that's why my company, we kind of act as the fractional AI department.
Right.
Because a lot of these medium-sized small, medium enterprises, they can't, first off, they're not going to build a team. You're not going to hire 10 AI data scientists, engineers. You're just not, right? But it's really, really important for all these companies to start thinking about, okay, well, how do we start implementing these changes within the organization, right? How do we take advantage of these tools? Because I actually see it as at current, there's a competitive advantage if you do that and you do it sooner and better than others, right? Like, I don't like being a fearmonger, but when I think about it, and it comes down to almost everything, right? Like, if you have, a resume, and I think we're talking about this, you have a student that has marketing student and great marketing resume, or a marketing student with AI and the same, all else being equal, you're going to pick that.
AI meaning as a tool that you can use to bring to the employer.
And if you think about business-wise now, right? Yes. Like, if you had business A here, business B, but business B uses AI and uses it efficiently, there's a competitive advantage there. They're going to be able to do things quicker, faster than this business. Now, and the sooner that this company starts, they play a catch-up game,
of course.
Right? And so
if they can.
If they
even can.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the SMEs, right? Like, because as I mentioned, those bigger companies have the resources, they can hire that team. Like, one of the things I do to kind of keep my pulse on things is I subscribe to all the Workopolis, Monster, like all the job sites, and just to see, how much they're using AI within the job description, and it's completely blown up.
How would you know?
Well, because they're sending, so you put in a word search,
sure,
and so basically you can ask and say, for any job that has this in its title, that it gets sent to me via email.
Okay.
Right? And so it's been blowing up. Like, it used
we actually had a recruiter here a couple of weeks ago, and the lady that runs the company, Carrie, had her assistant, and her assistant she was in her early 20s, and she was telling us how she's using AI to extract data and get information to be that much more efficient. So it's interesting you bring that exact example.
Yeah.
Because it was, I was a bit in awe. I'm like, wow, look at this young girl, and I'm like, that's fascinating. I thought it was awesome.
And that's the thing, like, it'll be really interesting because, like, I think different generations are going to adopt AI differently. it's really interesting because sometimes there's a little push amongst, because I'm a college professor, and there's some students that are kind of anti-AI, which is really interesting to me.
Interesting. Even in the younger generation.
Yeah, and I think it's more of a fear. Anytime there's a push against something that it's either you don't understand it, or you fear it, or you maybe just, those are the two main reasons, right?
Okay.
But I find it interesting. Like I do find it that there's a little bit of a pushback where, especially when it comes to the creation of things that might be considered artistic, right?
Okay.
Like, so
I can see that.
So,
yeah.
they're like, they don't like the idea of things being created that artists or other people could do. And that's the sad part about it, where when we first started, when people thought about AI, they thought, okay, well, that's going to free us up to be more creative, right? Sad part is the AI that's been created is really good at those things.
At those things specifically.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Like they're really good at, allowing you and I to describe a picture, describe an art form, and then press a button and generate it, right? Mm-hmm. And then the same thing on the writing side, where now, and I think it's good. Like, to some people would argue that it's not good, but for me and for many of the people I talk to, who have a hard time putting what's in their head on paper,
okay,
it's a brilliant tool, because it allows me to express myself in a form like writing that I normally wouldn't be able to express myself in as well.
And at the very least, it gives you a template to start with.
That's right.
So at least you start, and you can, well, you edit it to your preferences, but it gives you something to start with. Yeah.
At this point now, it's like, there's always that human in the loop where it's needed at this point, like where, it might get you 80% there, 60%, whatever. You still somewhat need that human there, right? To verify, to make sure the data is correct, that there's nothing that's crazy, or that it doesn't make
It helps to know what the data should kind of look like.
Yeah.
So you're like, I don't know about that.
There's definitely solutions to solving that problem.
Yes.
But generally you should always have somebody that has the knowledge that can help and say, well, this doesn't make sense, or this is wrong, right? Otherwise, if you take everything as is, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, or it spits out the wrong information, or.
But that being said, with really good prompts, with having this person with a little bit of expertise there, it reduces the risk. It's like a superpower, as you mentioned. Yeah.
And I know one of the things you talk about is, I guess, when you take on new clients or help clients, is, I guess, assisting them in choosing the right projects, like what to hit first, without wasting resources and so on. So. I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that before you'd have, that type of consultation with a company, there's probably some homework or some prep that should be done from the company side. So say, for example, I'm getting, hey, Chris, I'd like you to come and meet, our management team. We talk about what you do. What are the steps you think that we should be taking so that we get the most value at the time that you come in, and we're not just starting from scratch? Like, I'm sure there's certain things that we can bring to the table before that meeting in order to really hit the ground running.
Well, what we do is usually we encourage everybody, and we send them an assessment, right? Where it's basically the AI readiness assessment. There's like 1,000.
Is it generated by an AI bot?
Everything I do is generated by an AI bot. I'm actually an AI bot. I'm really a video avatar right now. So
but you look pretty good.
This is beautiful. Yes, I'm doing 1,000 presentations all at once.
Exactly.
Which is a concern of mine as a professor in the future. But anyways, but for now, I'm here.
Yes.
But back to
choosing the right project, the right project. So
the assessment plays a big role, because it really allows you to kind of start thinking about, okay, well, where are my weaknesses, and where am I? Is my business even ready for this, right? And then through that assessment, it opens up, where potentially the pilot projects will be, right? Because you'll know where your data is, right? Like, you'll know, is it in a shape that is usable, right? Is it adequate? And then once we have the workshop, that's where we start thinking about, okay, well, where are your biggest problems, right? And then we'll take a look and say, okay, well, is that feasible, right? Like, what's the cost of that? Do you have the data for that? Do you have the experience or the people necessary to make that happen, right? where I get excited is that, I think on some of the easier ones is just the implementation of a large language model within an organization, right? Like I think every company should have access to a large language model. I think that there's different and getting the training to maximize that usage makes tons of sense.
And what do you mean? Like when you say large language model,
so that's ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude.
You mean as a tool that's already being used?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, or maybe not, right? Like there's some organizations that are not even there yet. Like they're not even, if what we call shadow usage, whereas basically it's not formally used within the enterprise, but they're going home and using it off the side of their desk, right?
Of course.
And that raises some concerns, especially around privacy, security, and ethical issues, right? But back to, the assessment's the first part. Second, usually what I find is when we do the workshop, there's always an educational piece because...
and the workshop takes place after the assessment has been prepared, so that way you come in and you get a bit of a sense of where the opportunities are.
Also allows me to know what tools they're currently using.
Okay.
And then we can have a discussion on, are you being effective with those tools? In the workshop, it's always like there's some basics around artificial intelligence to raise kind of the level of knowledge and making sure that people understand what it can and cannot do. Because that's often, I've had numerous meetings where it's like, I want this. And I'm like, well, that's going to cost you a crazy amount of money and it's probably not going to give you the benefit that you need.
That's right. Okay.
So it's really kind of picking, because as I mentioned, any workflow, you can probably embed it in some way or form. So you really have to be kind of selective. I suggest that you pick the things that are not the hardest to do, but the easy wins. Because once you get one or two of those easy wins, then you can actually see, okay, it works. We're getting some success here. And then you start to just multiply it across, other work processes, right? Because like maybe you save 5 minutes. Like maybe that's not the best example, but let's say presentation or proposal creating, where you go from 3 hours to making a proposal in 10 minutes, right? And then review maybe total 20. That saves a couple hours, and that's one process, right? So imagine as you take 3 or 4 of those and have success. Now you're you're almost saving 16 hours a day, which is basically 2 people, right? Working full time, right? So 8 hours. So it's really key to be picking the right project or right pilot, and then making sure that the pilot you pick is somewhat successful, because then as the owner of the business or whoever's in charge, they can then say, look, it works. And then
it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah. Yes. And then the people that were worried see how they're like, okay, well, this isn't going to take my job. Like this is just making things easier and better for me. Correct. And it allows us to do our business or work better, right? So it reduces the fear. So there's a whole bunch of things that we do within that workshop that I think is not just about picking the right tool. It's about picking the right tool, the right project, pilot, and also making everybody much more comfortable with the technology.
That's interesting.
Because it's like Excel, right? Like it's not like Excel, I shouldn't say, but I use Excel.
Yeah, you talk about the adaptation of Excel and usage and trying to make the best use out of it.
Because AI is really just a tool, right? And everyone should, in my opinion, I'm biased, should be using that tool. And if they're not using that tool, then definitely they should be automating things, right? Automation, you mentioned using HubSpot. Yes. HubSpot is amazing at automating certain processes, right? There may not be any AI behind some of the automation, but it's still, I think, you should go in and you should be thinking about, okay, can we automate it? And then would AI enhance it? Like if you have those 2 questions.
Yeah, because I think we run right now, we're hitting just shy of 300 workflows running behind the scenes.
Amazing.
So
great.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, some of them may not be efficient or may not. So there's a ton of data in what we use now that could probably is ripe for the picking. And would it be fair to say? Would it be fair to say that once the assessment has been filled in, that you have a better sense of which projects would be worthwhile and which ones not, and then that way at least it's you're not starting from scratch. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, it'd be fair.
So the assessment would be able to reveal that.
Yes, and in that assessment too, because like you know your business better than anyone, right? Like so, it's you and your team of leaders that basically would be at that workshop determining, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. We would then, at the very end, you do get a report that basically says, okay, categorizing, this would be more likelihood, it's basically in very much sense a consulting report.
Of course.
But gives you some of the guidelines. Next thing, if you're like, oh, you got the report, you're like, okay, this looks great, let's do it. We can also help implement. Right?
Okay.
Especially if there's a need for training or a custom build. But as I mentioned, custom builds I would kind of caution on these days because unless you can build it and then sell it to others, I think that the return of investment. I also think that if I was to dive into the future, I think that you'll eventually have tools that you will just, if you need something, we need this, and the software will be generated and created, and you'll have it within, minutes to be used in your business.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't say we're almost there, but the start of that with like tools like there's Mocha, there's Lovable, there's Bolt, like Base 44, like these are all what they call no-code tools that allow you to just type in what you want and it codes and starts creating it. And we're at that point where these tools are, maybe a couple months, maybe a year, maybe a little bit older than a year, some of them. And this is the worst version that we have, and they're pretty good already.
Okay.
Right? So as more users use it, as more investment flows to these companies, it's going to become very, very powerful.
And what I love is that those 4 companies you just named, I have no clue. You could have named any name, I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
DORE agent.
Just being honest.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like I live in that world.
I have no clue. You could have said Star Wars. You could have said anything. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool.
And that's why my wife tells me to get out of the house because she doesn't care about it and she doesn't want to know about it either.
Go confuse somebody else.
Yeah, and for me, it's like I the way I stay on top of things is I try every day, not every day, but at least once a week, I pick a new tool and I play with it to see how easy the functionality, how user friendly it is, and actually does something that's good and not just a wrapper on top.
Okay.
There's a couple. There's a company, and I don't get paid to promote them, but there's a company called Fellow, which is an Ottawa-based company, has this amazing tool for recording meetings.
Okay.
So basically, does the notes, does the action plan, like. I use it all the time. It's so useful, saves time,
and it
keeps you on track. It does all that, right? Like there's other competitors, but I love it because it's Ottawa-based.
This whole podcast is run like that. No, but I'm kidding.
Okay,
Good. He's like, just reveal my tool.
Yeah, exactly. So the Fellow is one of those tools that I think almost every company should have that type of tool because it keeps everyone on track. Emails, the notes to people. It's just a brilliant tool. Like that saves time for that person that was in the meeting used to take notes, right? Like imagine, it's fascinating. No one's doing that anymore.
I got exposed to that. I think last year the first time, where one of our salespeople had a conversation with a client, and the client used that AI technology to keep track of the script. Yeah. And she sent it to me. We're all fascinated. I'm like, who took that? She says it was AI listening to our phone conversation.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it talks like it's quite fascinating. So that's.
Well, now you think about that application, voice is really interesting too in regards to artificial intelligence, because when I think about voice or voice bots, there's the technology, and I even have it on my website where you can actually talk to the website. Right? And it's great for accessibility.
You're going to become my new best friend.
It allows you to also, great. Well, I'm more than happy to help. But, it allows a person to type if they want to or talk to the website. Yeah. And what I think in some ways, people forget about the accessibility that this is going to provide people. So there's a lot of benefits to it that are not just, that fear-mongering of taking jobs. Right. That's a reality that could, but as humans, we adapt. That's the beauty of what we are compared to other things.
No, I think it's fascinating. So one of the things I want to highlight as well, because you mentioned it earlier, but I want to make sure people heard this, is that you're a fraction. You consider yourself to be a fractional AI service provider through Scarlett Nova, and I think that speaks volumes, obviously, because as you mentioned before, the larger companies will hire their own people, and then the smaller ones may not be able to afford, but the people in between may be able to afford certain services, and you actually are filling that need of that 90% that you alluded to. So I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understood that, because I think that that's a huge differentiator in the services that you bring to the market. So I think that's brilliant. So
I think it's I appreciate that first off, and because I do think
but it's a big, because obviously that's a challenge we ran into. Is you talk to somebody, but they're a foreign country, so I want to have a conversation about the challenge, which and no disrespect to that, but the reality is it's like, okay, no, you need to understand what we're doing, the people, and what the services, and sometimes it's harder to do that, but you coming in local and being able to offer that fractional service, then it's like, okay, well, maybe there is something there that we can use and make it work for everybody. So
for me it was like I'm as I mentioned, I'm worried about that 90%, right? Like, because I don't want that. The 90%'s the lifeblood of the Canadian economy, right? Like, those are the companies that hire people, mostly put money back into the economy on a much, like, there's 90%. Those are the businesses, right? So for me, it's a passion thing. Like, I deal with small, my students are entrepreneurs, and I worry about them. And so for me, launching, Scarlett Nova was kind of it made a lot of sense, because I see the problem being that these small medium enterprises are going to have the biggest challenge with adoption and using these tools. And to me, I get excited about helping these companies, because every single time I can reduce something, efficiency, or we can use data to help generate more revenue for it, it's a success. It makes them stronger. Right?
No doubt. Listen, I'm listening to you, and my mind just keeps going out with ideas. Good. I wish I had a notepad just writing ideas down.
Well, we're recording it. So
as I record it, I'll come back, because obviously I think it'd be a fun. There's already initiatives there that you mentioned there that I'm like, I hadn't even thought of that. So
great.
One of the things also that I'd heard you say at the presentation, where it came to, some clients have certain resistance, whether it's the staff or, obviously they're obvious. So, but how do you kind of alluded to it a bit earlier, but how do you turn that into positive? Because to me, you can look at it from a negative or positive, but there's a reality. Like, I guess the best thing that I heard, and you kind of alluded to it again earlier, whereas people today, if they can learn to use the AI tools, become that much more employable, that much more productive, and so on. So if they can use it as a tool and not worried about being replaced by the tool, then clearly, there's a huge advantage for the people who adopt it. So how do you? Did I steal your thunder? But
No. It's good. Like, it's funny, because like, there are people that I encounter and I have conversations with that are like, I'm not using it. I don't want to use it. I'm not going to adopt to it, right? Like, or adapt to it. I think that's how dinosaurs became extinct to a certain extent, right? I honestly feel, like, maybe they're just not ready yet. Like, when they have that attitude. And as I mentioned, I think it's either lack of understanding or fear-based. So I don't think I can convince somebody that has that mindset, right? Like, I can put forward an argument, and maybe they'll change their mind, maybe they won't. But I think in most cases, I'd say majority of people that I encounter is that they know that they need to use it. They just are not sure if they're using it to the best of their ability, or if they're using the right tools, or should they be paying for this or paying for that, right? Like, and I think the majority of people want to use these tools, right? Like, I feel like, well, I shouldn't say I feel, but the majority of the people I talk to, it's really not about not adopting it. It's once again, it goes back to the same things, education on it, right? Like, understanding it and understanding where it's best to be used. Eventually, it's going to be applied in every piece of your business. Like, if it's not there,
I would think so.
It will be. Like,
and I think it's probably embedded in a lot of what we do now. We don't maybe not fully realize.
Very true. There's a quote, and I forget who it is, but I think it's by Andrew NG, and I don't want to say his last name because I'll mess it up. But he basically said, like, AI is the new electricity. right? Where it's basically going to be, it's not there yet, but it will be embedded in everything we do, in almost everything. It'll just be running in the background, right?
Correct.
Like ChatGPT, OpenAI is coming out with hardware. The premise is that you're going to be wearing a band, like something, or it's going to clip on you just like a microphone. Yep. It's going to record everything. It's going to see what you see, and it's going to allow you, and through that, give you better recommendations, have notes, so you have instant recall, right? Like you say, what did I say? And then it'll tell you what you said, right? Like, which may or may not be good for relationships.
No, I want to delete that.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like, I'll be taking this off. But like, I just get so excited, and so I'm kind of jumping around.
Yeah, no, but that's good. Yeah.
But back to working in a company, and how do we handle when people are like hesitant to adopting? I as a professor, it all goes back to that education piece.
Yes.
Because when people are educated about something, they tend to not be fearful of it. Because they're like, okay, well, I get it. Like, most people forget that we have artificial intelligence. They forget when they use ChatGPT or they're talking to Gemini or anything, they get fooled to think it's actually intelligent.
Correct.
And
I think
they
that's
forget
the
this
big
artificial
key.
piece.
Yes.
Right? And really, all these large language models are amazing mathematical equations that pick the next best word. Like it's like
based on all the data that
it's crazy. Like just the mathematics of it is crazy, right? Like it's a beautiful algorithm that does this, right? Yeah. But there's really no intelligence behind it.
That's right.
Right? Like it's an illusion of intelligence at this point. Well, it's artificial intelligence.
Of course, yeah.
But I think where it could go, and a lot of people, a lot of scientists are saying that it's going to go to what we call general intelligence, like, because right now it's narrow intelligence. It does one thing really, really well. Then artificial general intelligence was basically, on a human level type thing, and then you go science fiction into the movies where it becomes superior to us, right?
Yes, but hopefully it never gets to that. But yes,
as long as
we'll be in the zoos and they'll be watching us.
Well, that's or maybe we're just ants to it, right? I don't know, right? Like, but I think that's I think it's a long way off. Yes. But I'm not a scientist working for OpenAI right now. Right. I bet you they would probably have the best view on if it's possible or not.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So if any business leader that's listening to this and is on the cusp, either they started, they use it, they whichever. Like, what is your advice to them with respect to the next 6 to 12 to 18 months in terms of doing that? Well, and it's a loaded question, because it's what I've heard from your presentation and multiple others is that we are in the ramp up stage now, and if we don't get on board, we may have a hard time catching up. Is what my interpretation of it. So I'm just seeing that you're right in that space. I'm like, is that the type of advice you would give to people listening to this that are on the cuffs, or you're like, don't be too doom and gloom? Or
well, the fact is that I run a business that basically is the premises that will help you with implementing AI. Yes. So I'm going to actually say everyone needs AI, and everyone should be implementing it now. But I don't do that selfishly just for my business. It's because I actually believe that at this point in time, you have a competitive advantage. The early adopters, or the early-ish adopters, will progress along the learning curve, and if you can do that faster than your competitor, you're in better shape. Like, so if all else being equal, you have competitor A and competitor B, and you have competitor B here leveraging their data to make better decisions, reducing process times and workflows so that they're simple and easier, and you have the same amount of people, and then now this team is obviously going to start to excel, right? Because now you have maybe 2 people that can do other things. Maybe those 2 people now are focused on sales more, and so now you can instead of having to do these simple processes, they're generating revenue, right? And now this team over here is not doing that.
Correct.
So
it's a huge advantage.
Yeah. It's not like it really isn't rocket science, right? It's like do you have a web? Like, if we go back to the internet, dawn of the internet, it's like you can have a website now. Or you can wait 5 years and have a website, right? Like, the person that has the website now and that has the eyeballs on it is going to do better, right? No. And and I see AI very similar.
Yeah.
So, make sense?
Makes a lot of sense to me, and I want to respect your time. I know we have a deadline. We wanted to hit a certain time frame, and we're pretty much there. Chris, thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
No.
Anytime I get to talk about artificial intelligence and helping others, I'm excited. So
yeah, this is going to stimulate other conversations between you and I. We'll take on after.
Sounds good.
So to everybody listening, check out Scarlett Nova. So what's scarlettnova.com is the website, right? That's the best way.
2 T's.
Yeah. So Scarlett, with 2 T's, nova.com. So scarlettnova.com. And you can learn about your AI workshops, your strategy services, which we'll talk offline after, and how you deliver a real-world impact. So Chris, I know you mentioned that on social media, LinkedIn is your go-to. I think that's where...
I'm only on LinkedIn.
Okay, so that's your... Yeah.
So I just decided to put my focus on that because I felt it was the social network most aligned with my values, let's put it that way.
Oh, okay, I love that. Good for you.
And time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's professional, and
I like it.
That's awesome. So for everybody else, thank you for joining us and listening in to this insightful. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Did I get that right, Mike? Yeah. Okay. So I'm Dan Doré. This was the DORE Podcast.
Awesome.
And until next week.
Thank you so much. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Great.